Good evening. Guess everybody's gone to where they're going. Turn your Bibles, if you will, to Luke chapter 8. Luke chapter 8. Before we get into our study, just going to let you know, Amy and I are probably going to rush out of here shortly after services tonight or whatever. My dad has had a fever today and has fallen a couple times, and they've got him over at the VA, getting him some fluids and checking him out and stuff. And neither he nor my stepmother have any business driving home after dark. So we're probably going to head over to Clarksburg here when we're done with services tonight. So to go check on them or whatever. But anyway, just want to let you know we're probably not going to hang around long after services, either to find out about that or to go check on them. So anyway, Luke chapter 8. It is our miracle that we're going to look at tonight is really one of my favorite ones to teach and preach. It really is. It is an amazing one. It is the man that was demon-possessed in Luke 8, verses 26 and following. And it is, it to me is it's a fascinating account, and there's just a lot of things in this that I think are really rich. And there's a lot of things we can talk about in it. But it is the one that the man identifies himself as Legion. And you probably heard that or remember that one. It's not because that was his name. It was because there are many demons inside of him. His name was not really recorded. But that's the answer the demons gave when the demons respond to Jesus when he asks who he is. And so anyway, it's a fascinating read, fascinating miracle, and we'll look at it. Starting verse 26, Luke 8. It says, "Then they sailed to the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee." Now, Gerasenes would be on the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee. The western side would be where Galilee is, and Capernaum and those cities. The eastern side of the Sea of Galilee is an area that is often referred to as the Decapolis. Do you have any idea what Decapolis means? Deca is what? 10. Okay. Polis is the Greek word for city. So you know what Decapolis area is? It's an area that's got 10 little towns in it. 10 small cities. We would call them little towns. We'd call them towns. But it's an area of 10 cities on the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee. And so it mentions that at different times. So that's where that area is. That area is primarily Gentile. They were some of the closest Gentile individuals that would be encountered by Jews. Let's face it. How many Jews do you know would have 2,000 pigs? Like later in the story. You know, no Jews would be having pigs. It's interesting. This could be the area that the younger brother was thought to go to in the prodigal son story, that he went into the far country and fed pigs. Just to throw it out there, that may be the area that they assumed it was or whatever. Jesus doesn't name in the parable the far country that he goes to, but that area there would be one that would be classified as that. Anyway, sailed to the country of the Gerasenes, sometimes called Gadarenes and Gergesenes. It's all the same region, okay? It's all the same place with different names attached to it and subsequent cities together. When Jesus had stepped out on land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. For a long time he had worn no clothes. So he's buck naked. And he had not lived in a house, but among the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you not to torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, for many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. Here this man has not worn clothes, and they chain him up from time to time in shackles, and you know what? He breaks them. Strongest thing they've got. The demons, it's like the demons give him superhuman strength. Almost kind of like the way it gets described when an individual is high on like PCP, where they throw 5 officers off of them and whatever and can't get stopped. They hit them with a taser 2 or 3 times and can't stop them. It sounds a little like that, doesn't it? That kind of thing where he is just, he's not amped on drugs, but he's just loaded with these demons. So he's not wearing clothes, okay? And he lives among the tombs. I'm going to really doubt that hygiene is high on his priority list. We've all encountered people that have a pretty foul stench. You might pass them at Walmart or whatever. One of those people that leave an aura before they get there and leave an aura after they leave. I can imagine that this guy had an aura about him, kind of like Pigpen or whatever from Charlie Brown. But you go to get off the boat. You get off the boat. It says that Jesus got out on dry land. He gets out on dry land, and this man comes running to him. He comes running to him, and he cries out. Okay? A naked man who is probably not shaved or bathed in years comes running at you screaming. The fact that Jesus didn't jump back in the boat and go back out to sea shows you that, obviously he's got it under control. I would imagine, given that this man was this way, I cannot imagine what a graveside service would have been like in that cemetery with legion there around the tombs. That would have added a great degree of difficulty for the mourners involved in such a thing. And so here he is. He runs and he cries out and he falls down at Jesus' feet. There's no dignity. There's no decency. There's nothing in this man. And he cries out in a loud voice, and he's at Jesus' feet. "What have you to do with me, Jesus, the Son of the Most High God?" You know what? Jesus goes all over the countryside performing miracles, and people don't know who he is. He even has disciples that struggle to know who he is. And here this man who probably he had never seen before immediately knows who Jesus is. Why? Why do you suppose Legion knows who Jesus is? Because the demons know. The demons know who Jesus is, and as soon as he steps off that boat, they know their number's up. And they're begging for mercy. One thing you notice in this, and anytime Satan or the demons in Scripture reference Jesus, when they talk about Jesus, it is usually in these terms right here. What is Jesus referred to as? The Son of the Most High God. There's only one thing that God has that Satan wants. You know what that is? Ultimate power. Satan covets God's power. He doesn't want God's goodness. He doesn't want God's grace and mercy and forgiveness and holiness and righteousness. He wants God's power. And so when Satan or the demons refer to God or to Jesus, it's always the Most High God, because that's what they have to yield to. You are the God of all, the Most High God. And usually their reference is into the ultimate power structure that Jesus or that God holds, because that is the one thing that Satan wants that God has.
What limits that power today? Because after the resurrection, we don't read that people had demons.
Yeah, well, that's a good side question. That's a question I've actually was talking to somebody about doing for one of our questions on question answer tonight. Is like, are people possessed with demons today? And if so, how do you get them out? And all those kind of things. It would be a good question for that. Short answer, I would say, is that no, they're not in possession of people today. Here's the thing. In what we see in the New Testament, in passages like 1 Corinthians 13 and in Acts 8, that the miracles have ceased. And I can't believe in any way, shape, or form that God's people would have demons possessing people without God's people being able to exercise power over the demons. And so the demon possession seemed to be a phenomenon of the early century BC and the 1st and 2nd century AD, when the Lord and the apostles inhabited the earth with the demons, and they interacted with each other, and Jesus and then later on his apostles had power over them to command them to come out and command them to go and to do. And so that the power of Satan was limited after that. Not only is it at the cross, because see, in the book of Acts, the Apostle Peter and the Apostle Paul both encounter individuals that are demon-possessed. Remember the young lady that follows after after Paul and Barnabas, and she is used to tell fortunes. And Paul turns and casts out her demon, and then her owners, the slave girl, they get upset. And then remember the sons of Sceva that they try to cast out a demon, and the demon whips up on them, and then Paul comes in and casts out the demon. And so there was still demon possession early in the church in the book of Acts. Now, how far into Christianity that went, we don't know for sure. But I can't believe that it would exist without God's people being able to cast out the demons. Kathy?
I was in a class once, and one of the explanations given for it, and this is an explanation, is that because Christ had free will just like we do, that until he completed salvation's plan, then Satan was vying for the title, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were demons here just fighting the cause, so that
Yeah.
he had not done what God had sent him to do.
Right.
And Satan would have been the champion.
Yeah, and that's very true. That had Jesus not followed through with the plan of his death, burial, and resurrection that he and God had worked out, if he'd not carried through with that, then Satan would have won. And certainly the demons being positioned there to do that in that circumstance would have allowed for that. And that's certainly a plausible enough explanation to it. And so, yeah, if Jesus had sinned or not carried through with the plan, then yeah, we would be lost, all of us, and Satan would reign over all the earth. Okay.
I think also where it says, I beg you, do not torment me, that is the demons speaking,
Oh, yes.
because they've already identified him as the Son of God.
Yes.
And they are saying, do not, because he didn't come here to torment the man.
No, no, and the man is not speaking here. I mean, it may be his voice, it may be his body, but the man doesn't know that that's Jesus. It's the demons inside of him that recognize who that is. They're spirit beings. They don't have to be told who Jesus is. See, that's one of the things. And you know, when you look at the New Testament, when you look at the gospel accounts, the demons are actually some of the best witnesses for Christ.
It's almost as if miracles and demons existed for the same reason. That was to confirm that
Yes, yes.
the Son of God.
And I believe that there was an element of God using Satan in that way to show his divine power and glory and power over Satan in that. And so that's what this shows. So he cries out, "What do you have to do with me, Son of the Most High God? I beg you not to torment me." And then he says, "For he commanded the unclean spirit to come out." And many times this man has been shackled and chained. And then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" Verse 30. And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. They begged him that let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs. And the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. Now, whether that was intentional upon the demons' part or not, we don't know, but that's what happened. And so that the demons were in with the pigs, and they all ran down the hill and drowned. Verse 34, when the herdsmen saw what had happened, they fled and told in the city and in the country. Then people went out to see what had happened. And they came and they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were very afraid. Now, there is another account of this, and it's found in Mark chapter 5. And the other account of this event tells us that this herd of pigs, was 2,000 pigs, or about 2,000 pigs. That's a lot of pigs. That's a lot of bacon and pork and sausage there. And it was about 2,000 pigs that they went into, and that they go down the hill and fall into the water, and they drown. And so the other account tells that, and tells the immensity of the size of the herd. I guess it'd be a herd of pigs. What is a group of pigs? Herd? Yeah, smelly? Okay. I can't argue with that. But I don't know what, I mean, it's a herd of cattle, flock of sheep. I don't know what anyway. Huh? Calls them a herd, but I don't know if there's a different technical term for that. Probably somebody could Google it, but it didn't matter. But anyway, they all go down the hill, fall into the lake, and drown. Could you imagine the mess of 2,000 pigs in the water?
But the thing is, a good old Jewish boy wouldn't care.
No. But if you got your livelihood off of that lake by catching fish, 2,000 dead corpses of pigs. Yeah, but that's the Sea of Galilee. I don't know that there were sharks in that. Mediterranean, yeah.
But too, we don't know
But
that divine intervention didn't, after they drowned, that was it, they were gone.
sure, that could be. That's a good way of looking at it. But yeah, but they just dissolved. All that fat just kind of came to the top. Anyway, but
The owner's sitting on the bank crying too.
yeah, the owners are upset. They go into town. They tell people what happened. They come out, and what do they see? They come back, And sitting at the feet of Jesus is the man. And what's he got? He's got clothes on. Clothed and in his right mind. And what's their reaction? They're afraid. Here, Jesus just got off the boat. Legion comes to him. He casts out the demon. The demons go into the pigs. The pigs run down the hill. The herders run into town. They tell people, bring people out. Everybody comes, and everybody that's been around this area knows whatever they named him. I mean, whether they called him, Legion the Wild Man or whatever they called him, undoubtedly anybody within miles and miles would have known this guy. It's the naked guy in the tombs. The original streaker, yeah. So, and so here he is. They would know him. And now here he is. He's got clothes on. He's able to, he's in his right mind. He's able to communicate. He's not, doing whatever he'd been doing before, whatever that is. He's not fighting. You don't have to chain him down to hold him in place. The pigs are dead. So pork bellies and hog futures, they took a dive. Pun intended. But, so the local economy took a big hit, especially those that were doing the herding. But the reaction to the people is they're afraid. They're afraid. I bet they were afraid of whatever his name was, the wild man. They would have been afraid of him. But that was an entity they knew. I mean, you would have to be afraid of him. Somebody that you couldn't chain up, somebody that you couldn't reason with. But they're even more afraid of him in his right mind. They're even more afraid.
In his mind, he was chained up. In his right mind, now he can dwell among them. I'm sure that.
Yeah. And so the fear is undoubtedly because of whatever power it took to fix this man and to drown the pigs. They're afraid. Verse 36, those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked him to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. Everybody sees what happened, and their reaction is to get rid of Jesus. I would say a lot of times fear ends up being the cause of more troubles in people's lives. A lot of times things that are disguised as one thing, but really deep down are fear, like say prejudice and hatred and things that about being judgmental and a lot of those things are often because we're afraid of something. We're afraid of things that are different than us, people that are different than us, or whatever it is, or that we won't be able to communicate with them well, or this or that. And it's kind of an underlying fear. And that fear causes us to pull away and pull back. You see, they're afraid of Jesus. They're afraid of whatever kind of power he has. Instead of saying, wow, this man has more power than the demons, they're more afraid of him than they were the demons. That's just mind-blowing to me. But that's what fear has driven them to do. That's what fear has driven them to be. we just kind of like you to leave us and go. We want you to move down the road. And so I don't, that's really an odd reaction for how Jesus gets treated. Jesus gets treated a whole bunch of different ways, but immediately, these are the townspeople. These aren't the Pharisees. These aren't the chief priests. These are the townsfolk. They say, we'd really like you to just leave. Yeah, they could see the influence of the demon upon him, but they didn't really. Yeah. That's a good question. We don't know. I mean, they could have been released to go elsewhere, or they could have been destroyed in that. We don't know that. So, I mean, I've seen different things where it said, they've been able to be released to go to somebody else, but there's nothing that indicates that for sure or whatever. So we don't know. And that could be, maybe not. I don't think Jesus made it easier on them. I don't think he was really doing anything that was a favor to them per se, because he wasn't going to help the demons out. I mean, he had no reason to help the demons out. And so I believe the reaction the pigs had was unplanned by the demons. And, so that's kind of my thought, that, he sent them there thinking, okay, we'll at least get to go there. Well, they didn't anticipate what the pigs would do and that they would be out of luck. But I don't know that. We're not really told. I don't know. I mean, like Mark said, he's a Jewish man. He's not really too worried about pigs, and the rest of them aren't really worried about pigs. Yeah, it seems like a lot of waste of sausage and bacon, doesn't it? Anyway.
It seems like, at least to me, as I see this whole story unfold, of course, we have the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me like our reaction should be the same as the demons. This is the Son of the Most High God. This is Jesus Christ, and now I know who he is. They had the opposite thought, the opposite effect. They were scared to death of him.
Right.
That's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Richard's helping bring a finer point to what I'm trying to say. And that is, the demons pointed out, this is the Son of the Most High God, and they get it. And then here are the townspeople that hopefully were going to benefit. I mean, Jesus healed the wild man, and that would benefit them, but yet their reaction is fear. Instead of what if they even just had the faith of the demons to say, this is the Son of the Most High God. If you believed he was the Son of the Most High God, you wouldn't ask him to get on the boat and leave.
Yeah, but they just lost 2,000 of their livelihood.
Yeah.
One crazy man.
Yeah.
They might have been all the pigs they had. So
Yeah.
now they're going to wonder if they're
They
going
might have had 2,000 around the bend, too, in another herd.
to send them off to the cattle or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What else is going to happen next?
Yeah.
The other thing is that it's human nature to fear what you don't understand or what you don't.
That's right.
And what hasn't been explained to you. So, I mean, surely, I'm sure they had that as well as we do today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were afraid.
Yeah, and I think that plays into what Vicky's saying, that, they don't understand, and they're afraid of their livelihood. They're afraid of what else is going to happen. He just got off the boat. What's going to happen when he settles in a while, So they don't know those things. And so, yeah, they are giving way to fear and telling Jesus, we'd just like you to leave. Now, right there's a great sermon. Have you by your life and by your actions asked Jesus to leave?
As Gentiles, they would have had no frame of reference for Christ, though. And you think about the Jews who rejected him, and they had centuries to study it and know what was coming, and they rejected him. I mean, if these people were, and with the pigs, they obviously were Gentiles, they would have had very little frame of reference for Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wouldn't have had, like you say, the frame of reference that the Jews would have. But at any rate, someone that could do that would be somebody that they were afraid of, but you would also like to think maybe they'd at least want to hear him out. Well, who are you exactly? That you did this. Well, who are you and what are you trying to do? But they didn't. They wanted him back on the boat. They wanted him to leave, and he did. Verse 38, the man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him. How many people did Jesus ask at different times to come follow him and leave after him? A bunch of them, wasn't there? This guy begs Jesus to go with him. And Jesus gives him a different answer. Jesus says, send him away. He said, go home. And also, how many people was it that Jesus said, don't tell anybody about what I've done to you? Quite a few of them, wasn't it? Healed them and said, don't tell anybody. But this guy is begging to go with him. And Jesus said, no. I want you to go back home, and I want you to tell everybody what the Lord's done for you. Well, one thing, to kind of what Kathy was mentioning, these are Gentiles. And so, this man going and preaching to the Gentiles is not going to affect what happens down in Jerusalem. And, assuming, I think it's a safe assumption, that this guy is a Gentile, nobody down in Jerusalem cares about what this Gentile has to say. No one cares. No one down in Jerusalem is going to know about him and how deplorable and despicable he was. Nobody's going to know about his story. Nobody's going to have seen him. Nobody's going to know him before that happened. His story is an amazing story, but it's not going to play too well down in Jerusalem. It's not going to be ideal elsewhere. But you can better believe in his hometown, in the areas around that area, he's got a story to tell, and it's a whopper. Because they all know. He could say, you remember that guy out there? That's me. That's me.
It reminds me of the woman at the well, in a sense, because that's kind of what she did. Everybody knew who she was.
Yeah, the woman at the well, very much, yeah.
There were a lot of people because of that.
The whole town comes out because of what she said. You look at the woman at the well in John 4, you remember the story where the 12 apostles go into Sychar to buy bread, and Jesus stays out at the well, and the woman comes out while they're gone, and Jesus talks to her. She goes back to Sychar and brings the city of people. You know what? The apostles apparently didn't convert one person when they went in the city to buy bread. She brings the whole town out to hear Jesus. So one woman who'd been married 5 times and was living with somebody did more to evangelize the town of Sychar than 12 apostles did. Unlikely evangelist? You betcha. I believe that there was some of that effect with Legion. That Legion goes back to where he's from, and you talk about a whopper of a story. Because everybody knew him, everybody knew what he'd gone through, everybody knew about who he was, and he was able to say, this is what happened to me. And you know who did it? The Almighty God by the power of His Son. That's why I am who I am. It says he went away proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. And so he went about telling about what had been done for him. And so here he is, this man who is going about. Now, when you look at Mark 5 is the parallel account. And you remember what I said to you a little while ago about Decapolis? In verse 20, after he asked to go with him, verse 20 says, and he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis, not just his hometown, but the area of the 10 cities, how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. Everyone was amazed. Now, it doesn't say that a bunch of people repented and changed, but everyone's amazed. And so this whole region on this eastern side of the Sea of Galilee has access and acquaintance with Jesus Christ because of one man went and told all about what Jesus had done for him. So this whole region of 10 towns hears about Jesus Christ because of him. And just think about what a wonderful miracle that is, what a wonderful story that is, and how all that just leaps off the page and you see what has taken place there. You know, it would have been real tempting to have been so embarrassed you left the area and never came back. You know, because you know what? Everybody's seen you naked. Everybody's seen you act like a fool for years. Would you be embarrassed to walk into public and say, oh yeah, remember that guy? That's me? I might have been a little sheepish after that, don't you think? But it was because of the scars that he had. And of course, even in Mark 5 tells about him cutting himself with stones. You know, so he's got undoubtedly scars and sores and all kinds of things upon him. He had certainly had all of that baggage. But instead of all of that, making him wanting to crawl into a hole or move to another country, he uses the scars, the pain, the anguish, the suffering that he went through, and that was his story.
Did the same thing happen when someone become a Christian and they
Yes,
put their life?
the same thing can happen. You know, Amy mentioned the woman at the well. Remember what it says about in John 4 when the woman at the well goes, and what does she tell the people? Come see a man who told me all that I ever did, all that I've ever done. Well, what exactly all had she ever done that he told her? That she'd been married 5 times and was living with somebody. So her proof that Jesus was authentic is that he knew all of her sins, knew all of her shame, and yet still drew her and called her. And so when Legion goes back home, it's his story. It's his pain. It's his scars. That is his message. And so, the pain, the challenges, the difficulties that maybe embarrass us and humiliate us may just be the best stuff we can ever share to bring others to Christ. You see, if our brokenness, because God's healed us of our brokenness, can help others, isn't that the reason why we get healed of to begin with? And so he gets healed of what he's gone through so that he can share with others. And so, you know, there's no shame in having been. The shame is when we stay there or we let whatever we used to be keep us from who we need to be. And Legion, because we don't have any other name for him, was able to be something wonderful for Jesus because after he was changed, after he was healed, he went back and he told all about God and what God had done for him. If we would only learn those lessons to go about telling others about what God's done for us. And sometimes it's those scars, sometimes it's that pain, sometimes it's that difficulty that matters the most to help others with. I know the things in my life that have been the most difficult to go through have actually been the things that have probably benefited me the most. And I would dare say a lot of you the same way. Okay, thanks. And next week, what were we going to do next week? Next week we are going to look at Mark chapter 9.